The inheritance of Blackwood Manor was less a gift and more a burden wrapped in legal parchment. For Alara, a historian struggling to find her footing in academia, it was also an opportunity. The Manor, a sprawling Gothic revival monstrosity nestled in the remote Pine Barrens of New Jersey, loomed like a sentry of secrets, its jagged peaks piercing the sky, and its weeping gargoyles seeming to whisper tales of grief long past. Her great-aunt Agnes, the last resident, had died there, alone and reportedly quite mad, leaving behind a legacy thick with shadows and whispers. Alara saw past the grim reputation. She envisioned a thesis project, an immersive study of a preserved 19th-century household, a chance to uncover the truth behind local legends that enshrouded the place in mystery. Her fiancé, then a pragmatic architect with a penchant for the practical, viewed it as a structural nightmare and a money pit, but his love for Alara was unwavering, compelling him to help her assess the dilapidated estate during their summer vacation. As they approached the manor, the overgrown driveway seemed to stretch infinitely, finally revealing the Gothic silhouette that stole the breath from both of them. The air around it was heavy and still, the cacophony of the surrounding forest falling into an unnatural hush. Ben murmured, "The foundation alone must be a mess," though his wide eyes betrayed a fascination with the intricate, albeit decayed, woodwork. Stepping inside, the silence deepened, thick and velvety, absorbing their footsteps like a shroud. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light that cut through shuttered windows. The grand hall, adorned with furniture shrouded in white sheets, transformed into a spectral ballroom, and Alara felt an electric thrill course through her veins. Agnes had died in the library, and it was there Alara uncovered her aunt's journals, leather-bound volumes stacked atop a massive oak desk. The early entries were mundane, detailing weather and garden varieties, but as Alara delved deeper, the tone shifted ominously. October 12th, 1958. The house is whispering again. Not in the pipes, not the wind. It comes from the walls themselves. A woman's voice, I think, weeping. November 3rd, 1958. I saw her today, a fleeting thing, a reflection in the glass of the cabinet. A woman in a gray dress, her face a mask of sorrow. She was there, and then she was not. I am not mad. The house is. Ben dismissed it as the ramblings of a lonely old woman. Old houses settle, Alara. They make noises. It's easy to let your imagination run wild. But Alara was captivated, feeling an inexplicable kinship with her aunt, a bond forged through shared curiosity. She decided their first project was to open the shutters and let the light in. While clearing the overgrowth from a first-floor window, Ben made a chilling discovery. Hidden beneath a thorny rosebush lay a small, weathered headstone. The inscription was worn, but one name stood out. Lilith Blackwood, 1821 to 1840, beloved daughter. She was only 19, Alara whispered, a pang of sadness hitting her like a cold wave. There was no record of a Lilith in her family tree. That night, the sounds began. At first, it was a faint, rhythmic tapping, like a branch against a window pane. Yet, when Ben went to check, there were no trees near that side of the house. The tapping soon morphed into muffled weeping, the sound of profound, bottomless grief drifting through the halls, sometimes from upstairs, sometimes from the cellar, always just out of sight. The next day, Ben, still determined to find a rational explanation, inspected the plumbing and electrical systems. In the cellar, a cramped space of dirt floors and stone foundations, he stumbled upon something unsettling. Scratched into the stone of the foundation wall, over and over again, was one name, Lilith. The atmosphere in the house began to change. The air grew perpetually cold, a damp chill clinging to their bones. The scent of old roses and damp earth appearing and vanishing without source. Ben, the skeptic, started to experience phenomena he couldn't explain. His tape measure would retract on its own, and he caught flashes of movement in his peripheral vision. A flicker of gray fabric, a pale face in a dark doorway that vanished upon turning. Ilara, meanwhile, became obsessed with Lilith. She combed through the journals and discovered a hidden compartment in the desk containing a single folded letter. Written by Alistair Blackwood, the family patriarch from the 1840s, its contents were chilling. "This scandal would have ruined us. My daughter's condition was a curse from God. The man she claimed was her husband, a vagabond painter, abandoned her. The child she bore, a daughter, was stillborn. The grief unhinged her mind. She speaks to the babe as if it still lives. We have confined her to the East Wing for her own good, and for the preservation of our name. We tell visitors she is consumptive. Lilith hadn't just died. She had been imprisoned in her home, driven mad by loss, her child taken from her. The weeping in the walls now had a source, a story of profound injustice and heartbreak. The phenomena escalated. Doors locked themselves from the inside, and the weeping was accompanied by a haunting lullaby. One afternoon, when Ilara entered the nursery, a room they had avoided, she found a lone antique rocking chair swaying back and forth, its rhythm perfectly matching the lullaby humming in her mind. Finally, Ben snapped. "We have to leave, Ilara. This isn't a research project anymore. This place is sick. It's feeding on us." But Ilara felt an unbreakable pull, a desperate need to understand, to give Lilith peace. She believed that if she could uncover the whole truth, the haunting would cease. She discovered that the East Wing was now a sealed-off part of the house, its doorway bricked behind a bookcase in the library. Driven by a compulsion she couldn't quite fathom, she and Ben began to tear the bookcase down. As the last brick fell away, revealing a dark, cobwebbed corridor, the temperature in the library plummeted. What had been a soft weeping transformed into a deafening wail of anguish and rage that echoed through the air. They stepped into the corridor, a time capsule of neglect. At the end was a solitary room, the nursery. Inside, a small canopied crib stood in the center, and a faded mural above depicted a happy family under a sunny sky, a cruel mockery of the room's true history. As Ilara approached the crib, a figure materialized before them. It was Lilith, translucent, her form flickering, her gray dress tattered. Her face was not just sad, it bore the weight of pure, undiluted torment. In her arms, she cradled a faint, shimmering bundle, the ghost of the child she lost. "Lilith," Ilara whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. We know what happened to you." The specter's head lifted, her dark eyes locking onto Ilara's. The weeping stopped, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. Ben grabbed Ilara's arm, panic igniting within him. "Ilara, we have to go, now." Lilith's gaze shifted to Ben, a different emotion crossing her spectral face. Vicious, possessive jealousy. She perceived in them the life and love that had been stolen from her. The bundle in her arms vanished, and Lilith's form solidified, growing darker and more menacing. The air crackled with static as she glided toward them, not as a pitiful ghost, but as an avenging fury. "My child," her voice, no longer a whisper, tore through their minds like a raw psychic scream. "You will not leave me. You will stay and be my child." She lunged, not for Ilara, but for Ben, her cold hands reaching for his face, as if to claw out his soul and replace it with the memory of her own loss. Ben screamed, a sound of pure terror, and shoved Ilara backward. He turned and ran, pulling her with him. They fled down the dark corridor, through the library, and out of the manor, not stopping until they collapsed, gasping on the gravel driveway. They never returned inside. They had the entrance to the East Wing sealed with concrete and steel, and sold Blackwood Manor for a pittance to a distant, anonymous relative. But the story doesn't end there. Ben was never the same. He became withdrawn, often staring into space. Sometimes, in the dead of night, Ilara would wake to find him standing over her, eyes wide and unblinking, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. And once, just as she was drifting off to sleep, she heard it. A faint, familiar lullaby, humming softly from his side of the bed. They had escaped the house, but they hadn't escaped Lilith. Her grief was a poison that seeped into their lives. In his moment of pure terror, Ben had left a part of himself in that dark nursery, and Lilith, in her eternal, lonely madness, had finally found a child to hold. Not a replacement for her own, but a companion for her sorrow. A piece of a living soul to keep her company in the endless, weeping